Okay, here's what I have. Crawl space.
Good afternoon and welcome to Road Gateway Rotary. I'm glad that I could make it to be with all of you. See here, is Pat on the Pat? I don't see Pat back. Can I have a volunteer? Jenny is going to sign up for pledge. Thank you. I actually did. You did. Okay, good.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hopefully, if the weather's okay, Monday.
Thank you. And Jim Huber has an inspiration for us.
And tell her what's going on.
I think this is a lesson that Rotarians have already learned.
Thank you.
It's a quotation from Scrooge. It's a quotation from Scrooge. No, I'm sorry. It's a quotation from the ghost of Marley visiting Scrooge on Christmas Eve. And what he says is, oh, good Lord, it's dark up here. Anyway, it says, but you were always a good man of business, Jacob. I cannot see. Anyway, he says, business. I need a light. Hang on.
Hold on.
Let me use your camera. It is dark. There we go. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, here we go. Okay, but you were always a good man of business, Jacob, faltered Scrooge, who now began to apply this to himself. Business, cried the ghost, wringing his hands again. Mankind was my business. The common welfare was my business. Charity, mercy, forbearance, and benevolence were all my business. The dealings of my trade were but a drop of water in the comprehensive ocean of my business.
Wonderful. Thank you. Oh, mankind is our business is a past RI theme. Yes. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Please be seated. Okay, I'm looking around the room to see, do we have any visiting Rotarians in the room today? Tommy? Oh. Okay, welcome to Chris Hall and Tracy, who are going to be our speakers today. Visiting Rotarians, I don't see Rotarians. Oh, we have on Zoom with us our Assistant Governor Bruce Reed. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Bruce. And let's see here. I don't see anyone else on Zoom land. Any other guests in the room today? Look. I'll bring the mic to you so you can hear me. Ooh, I love microphones. So I brought with me Fernando Barrett, and he works in development at the Asante Foundation. I met him a few weeks ago at an event. I was like, oh, I have to bring him. Not only because Don Welch is here, but I think it's great for him to meet you all because he is going to be working here in Josephine County.
January 2020. I sure you did.
Okay, and today is our second posting for Donna Sparrow, who's applied to become a member of our club. So welcome to Donna, who's here. Any other guests I missed? I don't think so. All right, well, welcome to everyone. Okay. We have several announcements today. So I know Jody and Laurel and Delyn all have announcements. And while they come up here, I will share some announcements from Janie. Remember, we have a fellowship event this Saturday if you have signed up for it. If you're making an ornament, show up at the Glass Forge at 1:30. And if you're not making an ornament, but you did sign up to attend the social afterwards, you can meet at 2 o'clock at Steam Distillery. And then the other piece that she wanted to remind everybody about is the Operation Joy cards. She can't take any more unfilled cards. So if we have some here today, and we have a lot of cards actually here today, including some that Debbie Brownell brought over from the school. And those cards are actually, the artwork is designed by students from the school district. And so if you can take some of those cards today and fill them out either during the meeting or take them with you and fill them out. We need all of the completed cards, the filled out cards to Janie by next Thursday. So you can either bring them to the meeting next Thursday or drop them off at Janie's house or reach out to her if you want to try to figure out some other way of getting those to her. So the other thing is, I think Debbie Brownell requested that we try to get a photo of us filling out some of the cards for the school district so that they can share that with the kiddos there too. So we'll make sure those cards get passed around. Yes. Okay, wonderful. So there's a basket up at the front for you to drop your filled off cards in. Perfect. All right. Okay, so Jody.
Well, guess what? Just Monday is our backpack stuffing event. So please make sure everybody is there, especially if you're going to be one delivering to the schools. We need you there because your car has to be able to be filled with the backpacks at that point. But we really could use as much help as possible. I mean, everybody has already stated the fact they will be there, but there's been a few people that have had some stuff come up that they may not come. So if you've got family, friends, whatever, make sure that they are invited and have them come along with us. I know the Interact kids will be there at 4:30. They're going to have some specific duties to be able to help us with things too. And like I said, we're going to change it up a smidge in regards to the fact that we're going to just do one backpack at a time, and then they're going to be reviewed to make sure that they're all filled out the same. So anyhow, it's really exciting. It's coming up. And of course, it wouldn't be our backpack stuffing event if we didn't start having rain. So, you know, we're getting right in the zoom of it right here. So Doug's going to come out today to my office to pick up the majority of the supplies other than the food items. So it's going to be a little wet. So anyhow, that's going great. Also, switching hats, October, let's go for December 22nd is our ornament exchange. So I hope everybody on Zoom land and everybody else here is going to be here for our fun right left exchange game. It's a kick, so make sure you bring ornaments or buy some ornaments and kind of run along that direction. I'm sure Delyn's going to be talking to you about that other part. So look forward to seeing you all on Monday. Thank you.
Thank you for the segue, Jody. Just wanted to give an update. The Interact group sold button ornaments at the North Valley Christmas Bazaar this last week, and they made $250 to go towards their well, so pretty good. I will have extra ones that they didn't sell here next week. So if anybody wants to buy an ornament for our ornament exchange coming up, I will have them. They're $4 each, and 100% of the proceeds are going into their well. So thank you.
Some of you have noticed that we are sending out invoices for dues for January through June. And the reason that we want to do that is our club needs to send the number of members we have in our club to Rotary International. And they will take that. Okay, so it comes twice a year. And what they need to know is the membership that we have, and that twice a year they will send us a bill, and they also throughout the year send out the Rotary magazine. And it's not critical if you don't make it until, you know, after January, but it would be nice if we had those and we knew everything before the end of December. And as a reminder, just so if you have forgotten what the dues are, it's $125 2 times a year. So you can do it both. You can say $250, and then you don't have to worry about it for the rest of the year, or you do it at the both times. If you are with a partner, the two of you have one bill, and that would be $225. And then if you are under 40, it is $63. So if you have any questions on that, let me know.
Yeah. Yes, I'm gonna let Brenda go, and then you can come on up. All right, Brenda.
I don't know if many of you have heard the news about Frances Dixon, but she had a stroke last March. And but the good news is Myra Jaguar School and that program is thriving. She has a fellow on her board that he's the one that ran an orphanage in Colima, Mexico. I can't remember what the nonprofit was called, but it was quite successful, and our Rotary Club took part in it a couple of years. But the school is thriving. Frances is doing well. She went to Florida and is there with her son who's looking after her. And she got well enough where they were able to make a trip up to Canada, which is where she's originally from. So she's doing well. Frances is 2 weeks younger than I am. So it's, it's sort of this is what happens as we get older. So I'm really happy that Frances has made it through it, and also that Maya Jaguar School is making it through it, and the kids are all just doing amazing. School has doubled. They're doing the outreach to the villages where they are reading to the younger kids, and they're thriving like never before. So good news and bad news, but bad news has become good news. So I just wanted to share that with everybody.
All right, thank you, Brenda. We'll keep her in our thoughts. For those of you who don't know, Frances was a former member of our club and founded the Maya Jaguar School in Guatemala, and it's a project that we've supported as a club a number of years. So, Beth.
I think it's like adopt a village, and you can adopt a child's and pay for their schooling and so forth for, I think, $250 a year if you adopt a child there. Anyway, I wanted to mention our foreign exchange students are coming, and I sent everybody an email. We did get another family that they signed up. Susan Fisher Mackey signed up. They just didn't know about it, but if anybody is interested, we would just lighten the load from those that have 3 kids this weekend to then they'd only have 2. So and what you do is they're really gone most of Saturday on their interviews. These kids are kids that have come in from different countries, and they've been here for the school year so far, and they continue the school year until June. So you'd be hosting those children, and they all speak English. And then the other kids, the American kids, are going to be interviewed to go out for the 2023-24 school year to whatever country they choose or get chosen for. So anyway, that's it. Thanks. And let me know if you're interested this weekend.
All right, thank you, Beth. Are there any other announcements we missed? I don't see any on Zoom. I don't see in the room, Donna. Yeah. Yeah, the information that I had from Janie is that the glass forge to make the ornament starts at 1:30, and the social afterwards at the Steam Distillery starts at 2 o'clock for the social. Probably not. No, it just takes a little bit. And they're right next to each other, the buildings, so it's a short walk. All right, any other questions or announcements? All right, well then I'm going to ask, make sure Tommy to come up and introduce our speaker for the day.
Good. So it's my pleasure to introduce to you today Chris Hall. And are you going to come up too, Tracy? No? Okay. Well, Tracy is also here. She's a member of Water League and all kinds of other fancy things that Chris can tell you about. But he's going to be talking about water. He's from the new Water League in Cave Junction, and he's also part of Chamber of Commerce. And so he's got a good program on water usages and illegal water usages, which I'm looking forward to. Chris?
Thank you very much. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here this afternoon. And if we could get the first slide up. Water League is a new organization. We are based out of the Illinois Valley, and we're working statewide to engage the public in water stewardship. This event, this presentation is called the Great Water Rush. We've all heard about the gold rush, and we more recently heard about the green rush. Well, over the last 150 some odd years, what we've really seen is the Great Water Rush. Every aspect of our culture, every aspect of our lives and our society has rushed to get a hold of water, and over 150 years of development and growth and production, we've actually started to see some serious declines and problems with water. And the work that Water League is doing to engage the public in the stewardship of water is designed to give the voice to the people. It turns out that, I don't know, about 1,500 people control the vast majority of the water use in the state of Oregon. And there's a lot of influence and lobbying and control over a precious natural resource that we need to be careful of. And the people, of which there are 4 million in Oregon, have had historically the least voice. So, so this is called the Great Water Rush. And is there a way to maybe hit the down arrow buttons? Yeah, and I think sometimes you can hit the down arrow buttons. So yes, that's the third slide. And I always like to start out with a little bit of a joke, right? And you can read this cartoon. This is no joke, in fact. Oh no, it's Oregon's illegal marijuana cartel. Here, what do you want? Our wallet, purse, keys, your water. And can we go to the next slide? So this work was funded, and I was hired by the Illinois Valley Soil and Water Conservation District last year. And I worked into the beginning parts of this year on contract to fulfill an obligation that they wanted to see done, which was to assess the community sentiment and to scientifically research the scope of the impacts of the cannabis industry on the Illinois River Valley. And it turned out that 82% of over 950 grows were unlicensed, and they appropriated over 415 million gallons of water without any right to do so. Can we go to the next slide? Does the down arrow buttons seem to work? Okay. Oh, one of my favorite slides. So this is courtesy of the Illinois Valley Fire Department. This is one of the organized crime syndicates. After harvest, they abandoned the place, and then folks who were left behind just kind of set it on fire. We're burning PVC, we're burning plastic, we're burning drip tape, we're burning just about anything that you can get your hands on. And the fire department received dozens of these calls in the Illinois Valley alone. I will point out that what goes on in the Illinois Valley is but just a small amount of what goes on in all of Josephine County, Jackson County, and throughout the Rogue Basin, and of course in Northern California. So what we're here to see today is just an example of so much of what else is going on. And that smoke that's coming up is probably filled with dioxins and all sorts of other nasty chemicals. Can we see the next slide? So a lot of times people say, well, follow the money. And I discovered, no, we're going to follow the water, and we're going to see where the water flows. Next slide. It flows to human rights violations, depleted groundwater, dry stream beds, polluted water, mowed down riparian areas, mayhem in the rural highways, stressed out wildlife, rampant code violations, and communities living under the existential threat of organized crime syndicates. I'm just going to take a quick moment here. We oftentimes use the word cartel. Well, a cartel actually is a collection of businesses that work to control a market and set the prices. The market and the prices are an utter disaster. It's been destroyed. And in fact, these people are not a cartel. They're organized crime syndicates, and they traffic in materials and human labor and in properties, and all of it is illegal. I'm going to give you a brief history of the cannabis industry as to how we got here. Next slide. So for over 60 years, from 1960 to 2016, we just saw flat growth. People grew 24 plants in their backyards. They grew organically. They were putting kids through school and paying off mortgages and putting food on the table and buying their cars. And it never posed an existential threat to the region. Then in just a couple of years between 2016 and 18, the green rush just blew open because a lot of folks were virtue signaled and thought they could come out of the closet and they could just start growing illegally, even though it was just simply legalizing specific licensed organizations. And so it just opened up the gates, which caused, a mass of people to come in. But then what happened is that the Farm Bill passed in 2018, and we got to actually grow a lot of hemp. And so people were looking for, a legal pathway to grow. So they all rushed into the hemp market because the FDA never went and approved CBD as a molecule to be a medicinal component. The market just completely collapsed. Everybody rushed back into the cannabis industry and THC market in 2020, but they had a taste and for the size of scale, they got a taste for large growing, like 40 acres of hemp. So now they just started applying that scale to THC. What we saw in 2020 and 2021 was extraordinary. We saw a 450% increase in the acreage of cannabis grown in 2021 over 2016. Almost all of that growth was in the last year. So it just went like this straight up. And again, we had for 60 years a very stable mom and pop industry that just got completely upended. Next slide. Not to be a prude, in addition to growing 2 acres of food and starting the Cave Junction Farmers Market and building that into the largest ongoing community event in the history of the Illinois Valley for 6 months every year, we get hundreds of people to come out. I also grew cannabis, and these were 1-to-1 ratio CBD to THC medicinal cannabis plants, perfectly organic, Mother Earth medicine, grew about 24 of them. And that's the way everybody used to do it. Didn't pose an existential threat. It was part of the Oregon medical marijuana program. Everything was perfectly licensed and legal. And we even had a water right. So a lot of times when I give this presentation, people think that, oh, you must hate cannabis. No, I think it's Mother Earth medicine. And of course, these organized crime syndicates came in and they destroyed that too. Next slide. Part of the work I did was an extensive mapping project I'll talk to you about. And the other half was market research, assessing the community sentiment. And so I held town hall meetings and worked online and met at people's kitchen tables. And out of 774 comments, there were 3 major issues that came out: water theft, negative impacts to the watershed and the community, and then the indifference by state officials to the whole problem, which was really what really got people upset. I was amazed at the level of upset anger that the community had. Next slide. This is just a quick example of some of that information. This actually came out of a very large spreadsheet where every single voice counted. And what I did was spent weeks going through all of the data that I collected that was qualitative and sorted it out. And it comes out into rough, those top 3 right there, the blue, the orange, and the yellow are water concerns, the negative impacts to the community and the environment, and then the lack of law enforcement. Smaller concerns with regards to the codes, to the human rights issues, just feeling scared, and then just not liking the grow next door. Give me next slide. So the next thing you're going to see is a map of the valley. The following images are from one really large map. I flew the entire valley in a grid with an ultra high definition camera. I videotaped the entire Illinois Valley, put it into Adobe Premiere, extracted over 300 stills into a Photoshop, and then picked out every single one of the over almost 1,000 cannabis grows and put them on an ultra high definition base map. And I scaled every one of them to the 1-foot resolution and located all of the grows. I mapped over 950 grows that were 12 plants or larger. Next slide. So this is a picture of Selma, and you can see little scraps of white, looks like garbage. Those are examples of setting these grows that I mapped onto this base map. And you see the next slide, please. Now we take Selma out and you can still see Selma. That's what's there. It's like a one big giant DEQ violation. And this was not like this in 2018 or 2019. Next slide, please. So this is Sowers Flat, running north and south along the Illinois River as you just come into Kirby. And next slide. And that's what it's like without it. And you can see the grows that run along there. The ones on the upper left are part of the Cube RX Ranch. That was 1.6 million square feet of illegal greenhouses. And there were 250 migrant workers that were living as slaves. And we're talking the top left, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on the top left. Now imagine that all over the valley. Next slide. This is Holland Loop, which is the major, agricultural center of the Illinois Valley. Next slide. And there are 531 cannabis grows just alone in the Holland Loop. And again, in 2018, you wouldn't have seen hardly any of this. Next slide. And this is To Kill 'em on the right, O'Brien on the left. Next. And you can see the water, they follow the rivers, and some of those are pretty big. 82% were never licensed in the Illinois Valley. Next slide. This is an example of a 37-acre grow that the sheriff busted, and I mapped the illegal holes they dug. Those things are over 30 feet deep, and they were reaching into the groundwater table, just to get water. They dried Deer Creek, which is a major tributary to the Illinois River, and they turned it into a gravel road. Next slide. These are 9 acres total. These grows were in the middle of Holland Loop. If you put them over to if you were to put them over downtown Cave Junction, it would take up like most of downtown Cave Junction. And I calculated around 18 to 20,000 pounds of cannabis were harvested off of these, and they never got busted. They just were allowed to operate all year. Next slide, please. This is Rockydale Road, just to give you an idea what the neighborhood's like. Everything is to scale down to the 1-foot resolution. That is not an exaggeration. That's what's going on. And in fact, this area has always been a hotbed of growing cannabis, but they used to just have 24 plants growing or something. This is obscene what it does to the wildlife, the natural setting, the rivers. And there were more dry well reports in this past 2021 than we've ever had, because they dropped the water table so far. Next slide, please. This is a friend of mine. He lives at the end of that arrow. And those are cannabis grows that surround him in O'Brien. Those are organized crime syndicates owned by one syndicate. And so they just buy up or lease. And the one that's just to the right of the arrow, right there, that one there, that was a trespass grow. The owner is a guy in his 40s. His dad died. He inherited the property. He lives in Arizona. He's never even been to the property. He didn't even know this was going on. They got busted this year because they came back this year. The county put liens on it, so he's going to lose his own property. He never even knew what was going on. And ABC News Nightline is doing a full segment just in like next week or so, and they've been playing it all year long. We did a 6 hours shoot, and we were on that site, and we'll see pictures of what it was like. Next slide, please. So who likes Harper's magazine? You open it up in the middle and you get there by the numbers section. It's always a lot of fun. A small 200 square mile region, which is 8 by 24 miles. I mapped a total of 946 grows over 12 plants. That was 753 acres or 32 million square feet, most of which was under greenhouse. 82% of the grows were unlicensed or illegal. And it's a 450% growth. It's a near quintupling of what had always been the case. Next slide. 1,500 acre feet or 505 million gallons of the 82% that were illegal. They took 414 million gallons that should never have been appropriated and taken out of the river. That's equivalent, mind you, of an entire summer month's flow of the Illinois River, of the main stem of the Illinois River. You shut the river off for the month of June or July or August, during the summer flows. That's the equivalent of the water that was taken out of our valley. The acres that old-fashioned plants like the ones I used to grow took up only 42 acres or 6% of the total area. That's how small the old school growing was. Next, please. So I calculate 1.2 million pounds of trimmed A buds were grown. Of course, that would go up by a third if you had the chaff and the B buds. 410 gallons of water per pound. And I estimate around $360 million at the low price of $300 a pound, because they crashed the market and the price of cannabis dropped below the price of production. And the costs that are externalized onto the environment and the community are priceless. Can't even begin to understand that. Next slide, please. Every illegal crop that is part of the large-scale cannabis industry needs a constant flow of water. And We believe shutting off the water, all of it flows from it will die. So when you follow the river, follow the water and see where it goes, you just shut the water off, all the other incentives for this problem go away. And so we made that a point of our contention. However, the state says, quote, and this is this summer, currently it is not a misallocation of permitted water right, to water a non-registered cannabis site. If you have a 100-acre farm of cannabis, which by the way, by definition is an organized crime syndicate, that has a valid water right of record for quote irrigation, it is not a violation of water law to irrigate that crop under current rule. If you can believe that, because I mean, when we talk about perpetuating some of the worst stereotypes of government, that's it right there. But I will point out the individual who said this started with the word currently and ended with the word current. Next slide. The operative word here is currently. And I think what that gentleman was saying was, yeah, we would love to change that. He actually is working within a system that he does not control. We can change the status quo that is stuck in the 19th century ideology that claims the purpose for water is to be used, and move into a 21st century view that the purpose for water is life, now and in the future. The archaic view did not envision the possibility of running so low that the quality of our water resources would degrade the economy and the ecology. Next slide. Irrigating illegal crops with or without a water right is not in the public interest, and it is not a beneficial use of water. Next slide. And just to point out, what is the public interest? What is beneficial use? Well, for starters, the public owns all the water in the state of Oregon. It's yours. Beneficial use shall be the basis, the measure, and the limit of all rights to the use of water in this state. And it means beneficial use means the efficient use of water without waste for a purpose that is consistent with the laws, the rules, and the best interests of the people of the state. And the Water Resources Department shall presume that a proposed use will not impair or be detrimental to the public interest or injure other water rights. I don't see how irrigating a 100-acre illegal cannabis farm is in the public interest or is a beneficial use of our precious natural resources. We're in a 1 in 1,200 year mega drought that's leading to increasing aridification throughout the West. We believe that we need to enforce all laws in a manner that encourages water conservation while striving to ensure that all beneficial uses have access to sufficient supplies, not non-beneficial uses. The number one form of water pollution in our region is temperature, heat. Heat causes cyanobacteria, it kills all the salmon fry and makes it impossible for the river to serve as an ecological habitat for various animals. We need cold water for fish, for healthy rivers, for agriculture, and for healthy community. Next slide, please. Based on input from the community, residential and commercial, in-stream and agriculture are the top 3 uses that are most important to the community. And I'll point out that 80% of every gallon that's ever extracted from our watersheds is used for agriculture. And that's a standard number across anywhere in the world where there's irrigation. Following are some images that flow from where water comes. And again, I'll point out it wasn't really a gold rush or a green rush. Rather, it's the great water rush of the last 150 years in the West. And it will only become more frenzied if we don't work together to use our water beneficially and for the highest and best purposes. And that, I will point out, is a very political issue about making a list of what's the best uses. So this is that grow that was next to that house with the red arrow. That's what that looked like in November 23rd last year after harvest. We're going to see what it looked like this summer, just a few weeks ago. Next slide. So this is the ABC News Nightline crew that was here about a month and a half ago on a 6-hour shoot. That's their anchor back there in the distance. And we spent 6 hours on this site doing a shoot that will come, it should be like next week or so. I keep getting texts from the producer wanting more fact checking. Next slide. This is Deer Creek, turned it into a gravel road. This gentleman has lived here for over 50 years. He has a water right, and he was out there with a shovel. No joke. Next slide, please. So this is what a working industrial illegal grow looks like. Just rows and rows and rows of hoop houses, and white pickup trucks are the ubiquitous tool. Next slide. This was from a 1/4 mile long by 300-foot wide series of, living conditions underneath on BLM land against a big grow. There were 250 folks living here. You ever see the TV show MASH? It was like MASH units, essentially, mess, shower, hangout, sleeping quarters. And they were all just living outdoors for months during the summer. Next slide. This is another picture of the same site. Imagine a quarter mile of this. It was the whole way through. This is incredible. Next slide. It was like picking through the ruins of like Pompeii or something. That hole was dug by extracting 60,000 yards of gravel. To get a scale of how big it is, those little piles on the left there are, dump truck piles. And in fact, actually what they did was they illegally dug this hole to get dirt. Of course, they hit water, and then they trucked it a mile away, and where they took the top of a mountain off for a legal OLCC grow. And make no mistake, I have had no end of people come up to me and tell me, Chris, they run that OLCC grow or this one or that one, just like an organized crime syndicate. So just because they're licensed doesn't mean that they're necessarily doing the right thing. Next slide, please. This was Josephine County Sheriff Dave Daniel, day at work this time last year, picking out drip tape from the Illinois River. Next slide. And these are some folks who were volunteering. They get into their kayaks and they go down the river, and they went to the confluence of Deer Creek and the Illinois River out in the, the wilderness, and we're dragging all of this stuff out of the water. Next slide. This is a dead bear at a friend, Tracy and my friend's house. All summer long, the bear was just kind of coming out, doing its thing or whatever. And one day it just showed up dead on their property. They called the OSP. The OSP came out. They're like, yeah, that's been poisoned. There are no other signs of death, and this bear should not be dead. And they're surrounded by organized crime syndicate grows. This was another major complaint, is the poisoning of wildlife because they just interfere with the grows. Next slide. This is like a garbage grow. If you look at the 2008 Google Maps, none of this was here. None of the garbage was there. They're not growing Mother Earth medicine. They're growing poison. Next slide. This is just another grow. Not even anywhere near the last one. So many look like this. Next slide. You can just see when the rain started this time last year, picked up some of the ditches and creeks and tributaries, and you could go all over the place. And this is just one of many, many places where you could take pictures of the water picking up the garbage and just sending it down. Next slide. This is a listing water truck, and there's no license plate. It just filled up at the City of Cave Junction's bulk water plant. It's headed out of town. And last year, just like the industry, man, they sold over 20 million gallons of water. It was a huge increase over the previous year. Cities and municipalities all over Southern Oregon were cashing in on the green rush, and it was so distasteful to the state government. They passed House Bill 4061, which shut it down because they were not going to have the appearance of like municipalities cashing in on the green rush like this. Next slide. The Illinois River, and you can see these grows just sucking right off of it. But what is most appalling are those holes that they dug. Those are massive. Those are about, 150 feet long. And they just piled up the dirt everywhere. It's just going to silt everywhere. That is not how you build a pond. And we have like standards and water right requirements. Next slide. This was like a very highly engineered illegal grow. Like these were like type A, straight A students who were just going to do the best job they could and run a very organized business. Next slide. This is what a lot of them looked like right after harvest. Next slide. Leaves are falling, and those are not leaf piles. Next slide. And here it is. This is a picture from this summer. They're still there. They're still going strong. They're right up against the riparian area. You can see they cleared the area to put that in. And that was there last year too. No one's busted it. It's still there. Next slide. This is a hemp field that was grown in 2018, the only year. What they did was they came in, they plowed up this gorgeous grass field that was there for 60 years. And if you know anything about farming and grass, when you establish a good hay field, it's like one of the greatest assets you can have. You plow it once, you've destroyed it. And that's what they did. It's just a field full of weeds. Next slide. My name is Christopher Hall. I'm the executive director of Water League. We are a tenacious nonprofit organization, and we do not go along to get along. We are not here to worry about whether or not somebody's going, to think about, there's a lot of agencies that are very worried about like what people think of them. We are here for you. We are here for the people. We are here for the ecology. We are here for the watersheds. We are here to do the right thing. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so you talked a lot about the problem. We appreciate that.
what do you see as some solutions? What some activities that can happen? So solutions are, for starters, we saw a 40% reduction in 2022. I mapped everything by taking images and photographs this year as well. We saw a 40% reduction. Part of that has to do with the fact that the industry collapsed. They oversupplied the market and they just couldn't bother to come back. A lot of people did not like the idea that they were mapped. That got out because obviously it was heavily promoted. And of course, the purpose wasn't for enforcement, it was for water and impact issues and to share with the community what the impacts were. They did not like the idea that properties could be taken. The county has said, we're going to come and take your property or put liens on it or put permanent injunctions on it if you lease or allow this sort of thing to happen. So there were a lot of pressures that caused to reduce the scale of the organization of the problem this year. But I do believe one of the most important things that can happen is we can shut the water off to them. That is the bottom line. And there is not the political will at the state level or at the Water Resources Department to do so. And I don't have enough time to get into it. But it just suffice to say that is the biggest issue, is the lack of the political indifference to the issue. And yes.
I think you're right. We have to get them to water for these people. I would say if Josh making the comment about there's nothing currently that we can do. And I'm glad that you also go to who we are. We want to see them. So doing something really strong law out there about how water is used. I lived in Tacoma, in 1971, so I watched the canvas from that time on. You're so right. So many years it was on operation. Really, there were people who lived in the community. Lots of work with schools and helping people, and then this happened. Thank goodness the bottom fell out of the market. There's a big mess on it. That needs to be cleaned up. It needs to be cleaned up. I watched those who drove a hanging the road. They got busted. They got busted. See, that's what busted too. And I asked about it, and so that's what we got to do. Snatching all of the pipes, all of the things that to be reused by the legitimate farm. So again, I want to thank you, Chris, for the work that you do.
Thank you.
So yeah, Chris, I want to thank you for the work that you're doing and the information that you communicated in your presentation. I'm curious to know if you work in conjunction at all with local or state authorities to bus these places, and if you do, how you do it.
That's a very important question. So we all have our different lanes that we stay in. And I want to make it very clear, the work that I do is actually not enforcement related. The work I do is scientific and social scientific based. It is also based in advocacy, policy, and also scholarship. So I want to point out that I am in regular contact with our law enforcement agencies. I don't discuss with them enforcement issues so much as I discuss with them social issues. I discuss with them community issues. I discuss with them water and ecological issues. the work I have done is not explicitly for the purposes of enforcement. I can assure you that while the research I did and the mapping I did is unprecedented pretty much anywhere in the Pacific Northwest. And that's what the scientists and the folks down at Berkeley University told me. But I can assure you that the law enforcement agencies with the Oregon State Police, Jackson and Josephine County Sheriffs, they have a lot of research reconnaissance that goes on. And if they were to use any of the information that I've produced, they would go and get their own as well, for sure. But thank you very much for that.
Chris, can I go back and think of Valerie back? And then there's Zoom questions, I'll read them to you.
I think I'm gonna follow up with the questions that this was before, but it's my understanding they also hired more water masters. So has there been an increase in people monitoring that in the last year?
Yes, so on December 13th, in the special session called for by the governor, they turned around just instantaneously $5 million to increase enforcement on water law. And I know that supplying scores and scores of letters and over 1,000 signatures on a petition to call for water law enforcement was met with support from Jackson County as well. And so there's no question the state has heard the concern. I want to make it very clear that the state still stands by the fact that they say that irrigating illegal cannabis plants with a water right is perfectly legal. And while the sheriffs are working 24/7 to tear these places down and go after them, the number one most important ingredient to grow any plant is water. You can take a plant and you can remove its soil and grow it hydroponically. You can put it in a shed and take away the light, but if you take away the water, it's dead. That's it. The number one way water is used in the commission of a crime is by using water to grow these cannabis plants. Most of it, I will point out, is not with water rights, but where there are water rights present, they're usually the very biggest grows. So what happened is that $5 million that was to hire the water masters and to enforce water law isn't going to go after anybody in that respect who has a water right in this regard. And in fact, actually, they refuse to enforce water law on all the illegal grows that have no water rights unless the sheriff has already gone in and busted them. So if the sheriff goes in ahead and busts them, and he can only get sheriff of Jackson, Josephine County and the OSD can only get to maybe 8 to 10% or so of all the grows. So like 90% of the grows never get busted because there simply just is not enough resources. And I will be the first to say Sheriff Daniel is a hero. Nathan Sickler is a hero. And the folks up at OSP are absolutely working around the clock. They have my absolute support. They could not do better, especially given the size of their budgets. And so the enforcement, the $5 million that was put towards water law enforcement is really going to only go to address legal farms that are fumbling the water rights that they have. And there's enough of that to keep them busy just on any given day.
Chris?
Yep.
Can we start up top there on
Okay, have our state legislators seen your presentation? Yes, my report has gone across the entire United States of America. Representative Clifford Bentz used it in his testimony during Capitol Hill discussions on whether to legalize cannabis. It has it's been cited in PhDs coming out of Berkeley. It's been published by Politico. It's gone all over the place. And so, yeah, it's one of the most widely read reports. And the report can be found if you go to the Illinois Valley Soil and Water Conservation District. So it's the IVSWCD. Go to their website and you can find a link to that report on their website. At the top left of the menu, it'll say special report, or you'll just see a picture in the carousel as it goes by of one of those cannabis pictures you saw. You just click on the link below it. That'll take you to the report. And it is a comprehensive report. It, I made a spreadsheet that's 1,000 rows and 30 columns, and it's every single cannabis grow and every single attribute about that. in terms of size, the type of growth, the amount of water, how many pounds it grew, everything you could think of. And all of that data is available in that report, including all the market research. Does your organization have a website that shows this PowerPoint? You know what? I will put this on our website. Absolutely. Sometimes, PowerPoint presentations are a little bit hard to get through if you're not presenting with them, but I will do that. The website. So I just want to make it clear that this project that I did was for the Illinois Valley Soil and Water Conservation District. I am currently working as the executive director of Water League. So I will make sure that you can go to the Soil and Water Conservation District, and you also can see this presentation on the Water League website, and it's www.waterleague.org. Very simple. Okay. What do our representatives say? Dwayne Stark, Lily Morgan, Art Robinson, Brian Boquist, Cliff Bence, Jeff Berkeley, Ron Wyden. Okay, so Lily Morgan is one of our greatest champions. I just think the world of her. And we don't have to agree on everything to be able to work together. And I think what Lily has done in the course of this has been nothing but heroic. She has my absolute complete support. And I think that Lily Morgan, Pam Marsh, and Jeff Golden have been at the forefront of this issue. And they are absolutely right on. Art Robinson is impossible to work with, and I will not even try. And I believe the gentleman has been ill this year, and so he hasn't gone to any of the sessions or anything like that. Cliff Bence, as I mentioned, used the report and the imagery on the Capitol Hill. He was actually voting against legalizing cannabis federally because of the issues that my report showed. Clifford Bence is a longtime farmer in the east of the Cascades. He still has an alfalfa farm. I don't actually think we should be growing alfalfa in the east of the Cascades where the water tables are plummeting. And that's work that Water League's doing. But I think Clifford Bence and his team are very much aware of the concern. And I think that they are going to be very big supporters in terms of trying to make sure that we don't see a repeat of what happened in the past. Ron Wyden, who got through the election season and listened to the classic rock and roll radio stations where every 20 minutes, Ron Wyden was coming out with the doom and gloom. We need to stop these illegal cannabis grows. They're stealing all of our water. I mean, it was a straight take out of the playbook of like, what's wrong with the situation. Ron Wyden ran almost exclusively on this issue during the election season. Jeff Merkley has been more silent about it, but his staff are very much aware of the problem. And the truth is that this is more of a state issue than it is a federal issue in terms of land use and water use and law enforcement. I'll just say the minute that the federal government legalizes cannabis, Montana can grow every square inch that the whole United States of America needs, and they will. And then there are about another dozen states that could do the same. So the oversupply will be like, it'll make it cheaper than carrots or hay. And what Oregon and the Illinois Valley and Southwest Oregon will be left with is the opportunity to grow the top 1% finest cannabis the world's ever seen and just follow that niche. Any other questions? Yes, Tommy.
We had a man next door to us who wanted to build a pond and have fish stock in it. And the water people said, no, you can't do that. You're less than a mile from Buffalo Creek, which is really good. So why do they, if it's little, I mean, it was rich, but it wasn't a big, powerful, whatever. I don't understand why the state water board is saying that that's legal. That doesn't make any sense to me with what I've seen happen.
So we are in the road basin where they have over appropriated all water rights, both groundwater and surface water. And so building a pond would be considered a surface water appropriation. Now, what happens with the water table is that you have this cone of depression where you suck water out. And if you are going to appropriate and store water within 1 mile of a seasonal creek or an annual creek, they will out of hand reject the water rate. So it's nothing special. In fact, it used to be a 1/4 mile. They moved it up to a full mile. And at this point, because the Rogue River and the Illinois River are both state designated scenic waterways, They've over appropriated groundwater, water rights for like agricultural purposes. We're not talking like domestic wells, you can still drill those. But they've over appropriated them by like 2.5 times or something. So you can't get a water right for groundwater anymore. And there are no water rights anywhere within like 150, 200 miles that you can get for surface water rights. What's very interesting is that there's an old saying that water thieves have the most senior water rights. Because what happens is that if you have junior water rights or you're somebody who wants to establish a new water right, the state will say, oh, we're going to shut you down, or no, you can't get your new water right because we've over appropriated the surface and groundwaters, and these senior water right holders can't get impinged on, right? Well, you know, the water thieves are like far more prevalent than any of the senior water right holders, and nobody goes after them. The state refuses to. They absolutely steadfastly refuse to go after the water thieves as a policy. So yeah, what you're disgruntled about is like, I hear this every day. Here's somebody who wants to do something very simple that is going to be victimless crime, and it's going to be like something that'd be nice to be able to do for the environment and a nice, you know, pond, but you know, a mile down the street, they're sucking 10 times that much water to grow an illegal cannabis grow that operates with impunity, and the state won't touch. And that's like, I've heard 500 of these complaints, and I address every single one of them. All right, if there are no other questions, again, I want to tell you that it has been an honor and a pleasure to be here today and to be asked to come and share this information. And I also want to say that what Water League does, this is just a tiny, tiny, tiny little sliver of what Water League's mandate is and what we do. And while we're based out of the Illinois Valley, we are working completely statewide. We have a number of statewide initiatives that are happening. And we just finished working with the Southern Oregon Pachamama Alliance on the Water Solutions Summit in the Rogue Valley. And we're going to be carrying that forward for the Pachamama Alliance going through 2023, creating cohorts and committees based on very specific solutions that we've identified about how to solve various water crises. And we look forward to doing so. And the last word I'm going to say is the public trust doctrine. Look it up, learn it. We're coming in 2023 to share that with everybody. Thank you.
Try to get this back in here. All right, thank you. Very interesting presentation and good information for us to have. Okay, we are running a little bit late, but I want to see if you are if you are able to stay for Happy Bucks, you can go ahead and please do that. Don't forget we have cards for folks to sign up. So if we want to get this box distributed around and make sure you grab a stack if you're able to fill those out, you can drop any currently filled ones out at the basket back here, or take some and bring them back next Thursday. See if I have any other announcements. Next week's program is Patty Toronto, our very own member. Patty Toronto will be presenting about the Democratic Republic of Congo. Sounds like a very interesting presentation. Sadly, I will not be here to hear it. I'll be running an event at the hospital. So Jim Huber is going to fill in for me next week. So I appreciate that. All right, Lutz, do you want to come up and we'll take Happy Bucks for a little bit?
Excuse me, a couple of events to alert you to before I get started with these. One is Krampusnacht is happening in Europe. And for those of you that don't know anything about it, on certain days in Europe, Santa or Saint Nicholas brings out all kinds of toys for kids and candy and so on. But along with him comes Krampus, who is an anthropomorphic figure with horns and very ugly. And he is meant to scare the bejeebers out of kids in order to make them act better. And I can attest to the fact that it works. When I was 3.5 years old, the first time I saw Krampus, I pooped my pants. So anyway, it's something that in terms of maybe a future grant that we have, something like bringing Krampus to campus and doing a room where kids would have to go down and see this guy instead of going to the principal's office, you know, maybe a different way of dealing with the problem. Secondly, anybody know what the word of the year is for the Oxford Dictionary?
Goblin mode.
Do you? Okay. Okay, no, it's goblin mode. That was last year's. Yeah, it's goblin. Yeah, goblin mode, which the description of it by Oxford is goblin mode is a type of behavior which is unapologetically self-indulgent, slovenly, or greedy, typically in a way that rejects social norms or expectations. So it's a very negative kind of a thing. But when I read it, I thought, whoa, this is a description of dudism. The Church of the Latter-day Dude, which is part of the Big Lebowski, you know, that's exactly what he does, you know, so it's a positive spin on it from that side. So anyway, the two major things happening this week, as far as I was concerned. So how about some happy bucks out there? Nobody's happy today. Valerie.
I'd like to say one is happy, but I actually, this is kind of a bittersweet happiness. I've had knee issues for the last 2 years. I got severe arthritis problem, but you kind of learn to live with it. I finally went to the doctor that said, yes, we will do knee replacement for you. So that is wonderful. I just like to walk and hike and still like to think they have 30 years ahead of them, that I can do it without pain. Exactly. So that was wonderful news. So I'll put $20 on that. Anybody else?
Hi, John, happy bucks. It is holiday spirit week at the hospital, hence the outfits. We've been having a lot of fun every day. It's been a different dress code for the week, and it's been fun seeing all of the staff get really excited and dress up. So if you have reason to be by the hospital, come check it out because it's a lot of fun to see everybody all decked out. But it's been nice, especially with the challenges that the hospital has been facing and the staff, you know, the patient volumes. It's been really wonderful to see everybody's spirits up. So.
I got a happy buck, or some happy bucks. I've building an apartment above my garage and finally gotten to the point where sheetrock is going up. And when sheetrock goes up on the construction site, it's kind of the downhill slide of the project. So it's really nice to see the end in sight. But really important is I'm gonna have my garage back. It's really nice. And then the thing that's really kind of funny is how much I miss my garage door open. Open the garage door. And Beverly tells the story of being a kid and getting the remote control from the TV. And how lazy are you? Remote control the TV. I couldn't run my TV without remote control right now. But it's almost the same as garage door opening. Like a lazy first world schmuck. Let me jump to Zoom land for a minute. Looks like Debbie's up there. I'm struggling with their speaking, so Deb.
So if people need a pick-me-up happiness fix, there's
very slowly.
the Grants Pass Express.
Anybody out here if there's people running for it?
Debbie, can you stop now?
What's that?
Okay, hang on, Debbie.
Okay.
Great.
I just have some happy thoughts because I'm happy to be back in Oregon with all of you.
Bring the mic over here and I'll put it on the. Debbie, I've got the speakers running on the laptop. Hang on 1 minute. All right, go ahead, Debbie. Yell into that microphone. Go ahead, Debbie.
Go ahead, Debbie.
So tonight at 5:30, the Grants Pass Express, which is a special Christmas light extravaganza at each of the 6 elementary schools in town, is putting on a special light show. And it's also a food bank raiser, so that if you are so inclined, you can donate food as you go, as you drive through a school's lighting display. But it went last year and it's really fun to see all the lights and it's a nice thing to be happy about in our town.
Great, thank you, Debbie. Anybody else in Zoom land? Anybody else out here? You know, I'd like to kick in 5 happy bucks also. I was beginning to think that extra was gonna come through for our backpack program, but I just picked up 216 $5 gift cards to put in the backpack. Anybody else?
Thank you. All right, so the last thought of the day, today is Bodhi Day, which is observed to mark the moment 2,500 years ago when Siddhartha Gautama achieved enlightenment and became the Buddha. And so a quote from him is, "What you think, you become. What you feel, you attract. And what you imagine, you create." Thank you all, and I will not see you next week, but hopefully you will all be here next week, and I will be back on October, I did the same thing, December 22nd for the ornament